to some of the things you want to talk about today, the CET.
Absolutely.
Take us through that process and have persons understand more about the CET.
Sure. So, Gordon, I'll try to be as succinct as possible so that we're able to reach even the person who has no idea about this. Now, we're all aware in Guyana that we're a member of CARICOM, the Caribbean Community. We're also aware that under CARICOM, there is the architecture of CSME, the CARICOM Single Market and Economy. Now, under that integrated market, the group of countries that are members of CSME, they come together and they set what's known as a Common External Tariff for the countries that are there. Now, essentially, that Common External Tariff acts as an import tariff for each country for the various products that are identified. And so let's take, for example, Gordon, if you want to bring in maybe, let's say, some pine wood or something to the region.
Yeah.
And let's say that you have a common external tariff that's applied on pine wood. That common external tariff that is determined at the CARICOM meetings is then charged as a percentage on the product that you are importing. So if you want to bring pine wood in, and let's say the common external tariff is 40% or 50% or 20% on that pine wood, you're charged for the price of that pine wood, the cost, of course, to ship it here, the taxes, etc. But then you are additionally charged 30 or 40%, whatever is determined at CARICOM. And why that is important is obviously clear, because that really ascertains what prices or what sort of price influence is had on particular products. The benefit, however, that is provided for enterprises, whether small, large, anyone providing the product, is essentially that you are able to protect and support your domestic manufacturing. Let's take, for example, if someone is producing, maybe let's say plywood, or they're manufacturing doors here in Guyana, and that person is producing at maybe say $15,000 per door. When you have that production at 15,000, maybe let's say externally you're able to compete at about 13 or 14,000 you're getting a door in for. A common external tariff is then applied on that product, which will then increase the price, and so it will promote or stimulate domestic as well as regional manufacturing. Now, what's important to note about that, Gordon, is that any product that originates within the CARICOM region, so for example Trinidad, for example Jamaica, anyone who is a signatory to CSME, those products that are produced from there are not charged the CET. So it's all about regionalism and essentially to promote our regional brothers and sisters, as well as benefits for domestic or Guyanese manufacturers.
You know, sometimes I've heard the argument when discussing CET, persons say it sometimes work out cheaper to bring products from outside of the region because some businesses in the region might be taking advantage of the fact that the CET exists, and so they have an advantage. How would you respond to that? Is it a concern?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is always the counter-argument historically for common external tariffs, etc. But if we are serious about Guyanese enterprise, if we're serious about CARICOM, if we're serious about pushing our regional agenda, then we have to be able to, in some way, shape, or form, give our businesses an edge up or give our businesses, a foot in the door. Because if you think about countries, for example, the United States or China, who are economic powerhouses, there is no way in a completely free and open market that we can compete with those countries.
That is true.
Those countries have lower cost of electricity. They have access to much more information, materials, better supply chain. They have a historical linkage with many of the various intermediaries in production, and so we have historically created mechanisms so that enterprises within the Caribbean region are able to get a foot in the door. Otherwise, think about what would happen to the thousands of jobs as well as the thousands of businesses within the entire Caribbean region in absentia of that.
And I know the CET is related to the rules of origin under that same CARICOM umbrella, and they're going to be hosting an information session
Yes.
coming up on Monday, the 12th of September. Why should businesses be interested in such an information session? What are some of the key areas that it will be looking at?
Sure. So recall that I mentioned a few minutes ago that it is very important for us to understand which products CET is charged on, and equally important is for us to understand the economic nationality of that product.
Yeah.
So remember, I made the point a couple minutes back about countries within the CSME and the CET being able to benefit those countries within the CSME. Now, if you think about it, if a country is, let's say, cheating, and they are not really manufacturing that product, but they are bringing it in from somewhere else, external to the region, slapping on a made in whatever tag, and then sending it to another country and benefiting from the CSME, the majority of the economic value is not being attributed to that country.
Yeah.
It's being attributed to the country who originally produced the good. This is the reason why rules of origins are important. It's important to determine where the economic value for the product is actually created and who benefits the most. So if you take, for example, a country who is producing a product and all that they're benefiting from is a simple 10% markup.
Yeah.
What about all of the millions of dollars that would have gone into the research, innovation, production, efficiency,
The rest
all of
of
the
it.
thousands of jobs, etc. So this is the reason why both the Common External Tariff as well as the rules of origin of where the product originates from, those two are absolutely important. I just want to give very quickly, because I know we're beginning to run out of time, but I want to give very quickly the mechanism through which this happens. Now, for those who may not know, there is an organ of CARICOM called Council on Trade and Economic Development, COTED. That council meets every 6 months, and we are represented at that council by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Now, discussions are had at our national level amongst all stakeholders, consumers, private sector, manufacturers, etc. And what we do is that we look at the list of products that the CET is essentially being proposed on, or is being proposed to be removed. So whether we're adding CET or removing CET, what we then do is we look, each country looks internally to see, do they have the domestic capacity to supply that in the region? And then we go to COTED by way of our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we make representation on whether or not that product should be. That is all determined at a regional level, whether or not the CET will be applied or removed, etc., as well as the range and the rate, as well as for how long. So really what this information session is about is being able to bring private sector enterprises on board for us to ascertain, do we want this CET on this particular product? Do we not want this on this particular product? Are we producing these goods here in Guyana? Are we producing, or is that good being produced in another regional member of CSME? And really looking at the spirit of regionalism and CARICOM to drive our economies forward.
Are there specific products that may be up for review?
Yes,
coming up?
Yes, there are products. I can't recall the list offhand,
Okay.
to be honest, but there are a number of products that are usually up for review. And as I would have mentioned, you can understand why this would have an economic impact, not only on Guyana, but also all of the other Caribbean countries.
And the information session happening on Monday, it's a virtual session.
Yes.
Do they have to sign up somewhere, or is the chamber going to be sending out notices to the members? How is it working?
So this is a joint event being hosted amongst the Guyana Revenue Authority, the Department of Foreign Trade of the Ministry, the Private Sector Commission, the GMSA, as well as the GCCI. But the GMSA is really the repertoire for it. So gmsagy.org
Okay.
As well as, of course, they can always reach out to any of the other business support organizations. They can be contacted via their social media, etc. Or we're all around the same vicinity, 156, 157 Waterloo Street. Someone can take a visit in. But essentially, gmsagy.org, that website will have the information to be able to register.
And once they do that, they can, pick it up from there and be a part of this information session.
Yes, and it's important to note whether or not you are a member of any of these institutions. Of course, we'll encourage you to be a member, but whether or not you are, once you're part of the private sector in Guyana, please do come on board, because this is a national as well as a regional matter.
All right, good information here. And I'm hoping those business leaders out there will take advantage of it, since it will benefit them in the long run. And hopefully they take advantage to be part of that. A virtual information session happening on Monday, the 12th of September. So you can go to the page for the GMSA for more details on that information session. I figure the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will also be putting out some information, and CARICOM too, on that information session that's coming up. Thanks a lot, Mr. Rambarran, for being here this morning and sharing that information with us.
Thank you, Gordon.
Have a good day today.
You also.